Welcome to another edition of Vigorously with me, your girl Val Kleinhands. Singer-songwriter Theo Adler is in the building, checking in all the way from London. How are you, sir? I'm thrilled to have you.
Hello. Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Okay, I gotta ask though, did you recently go blonde? Because I've seen other pictures of you as a brunette.
Yeah, it was the start of this year.
Oh, okay. New year, new vibe. We're on it.
That's
We got
it.
the memo. Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you
So
like the blonde better?
I do. Yeah, I definitely am feeling like they have more fun right now, but it's still being tested.
I got it. I'm a little bit jealous of you. I've got to, and everybody in the UK right now, I've got to admit, because y'all are getting your first taste of Oasis first before we do
Yeah.
with the anniversary announcement. We waited 15 years, and now all of a sudden the brothers are cool with each other again, and they're only going to do something in the UK at this point. There could be more, but at this point. Oh, wasn't that amazing?
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I've got to love Oasis. So
Yeah. They're on the
yeah,
list
I'm
of
definitely
influences,
happy.
I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Of course. So who else is on the list of influences? I think Radiohead is there. What have you grown up listening to?
Yeah, so I grew up listening to quite probably a varied mixture of things. My first ever influence that really inspired me to get into music was Ben Folds Five,
Yes.
and Ben Folds. Yeah, I heard his CD in my dad's car, and after that, it was almost that really knew what I wanted to do. So yeah, which is perform.
Yeah, Ben is a talent. I mean, I've seen him live twice now. Army is always going to be my favorite song just because of the first line.
Yeah, it's
Purely
a
because of
brilliant
the first
song.
line.
Yeah.
I thought about the army. My dad said, "Son, you're fucking high." I was like, "What?" Okay, we're in for a treat with this one. We need to listen to the whole song. And then
Yeah.
listening to the whole song leads into we got to check out the whole discography. But he's a performer. He's multi-talented when it comes to all the instruments and everything that he can do. Are you a multi-instrumentalist too?
Yeah, I would like to say so. I grew up playing piano when I was younger, and I got into guitar a little bit more when I was a teenager. And I kind of quite quickly realized that to kind of make things that I wanted to make, I didn't want to just kind of be on the keys per se.
Mhm.
So, and also, hearing just so many bands out there with such great music, yeah, Ben Folds Five being one of them, and I know that he's a kind of a singer-songwriter himself, but then Ben Folds Five having that kind of ironic name because they're actually three people, right? But just making that kind of hard rock sound. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so like, and I would say that it was probably stuff around the kind of melodies and stuff. It's very melodic, his music, which I really enjoyed.
Hmm. It sounds like you tried to implement that in your own style. How did you find what worked for you? How did you develop your style?
So I would say that it was really, I guess, just trying to live my life and pick up experiences around me, trying to incorporate the things that I love most about music into my sound. So, I said, Ben Folds being a really early one, but then I kind of grew up in London, in West London, and there was bands like Alabama 3 or like
Mm.
The Clash, if I'm going back a bit, and Primal Scream, and bands that probably gave me a bit of a feeling of like, oh, I can relate to that because that's where I grew up around. So
Yeah. That's important. There's something about how finding a band that comes from the geographical area that you come from and latching onto them just because you feel like they already understand you because they're writing about things that you maybe saw every day yourself, or the vibe sonically it just matches what you imagine when you think of that hometown or that city yourself. I love it when
yeah.
bands can do that. Anybody from Pittsburgh really for me is that, or even anybody in Minnesota, something like Prince. Prince was just so interesting too because there wasn't a lot of other princes in the world. There will never be a lot of other princes in the world,
Yeah.
but like to capture a vibe and to be able to experiment There's something to be said for that for sure. I wanted to ask,
Definitely.
when did music take hold and when did you decide I really want to do this for real, professionally, take it seriously? Tell me about that moment.
I think I was quite lucky in that I knew that from quite early on, and I was playing I was lucky to kind of be in front of a piano when I was about kind of 5 to around kind of 8 years old. And what I used to do right at the start is I had this program on my computer called Sibelius where I could write out the kind of the notation for the music, and
Mm,
I realized I could like export that as a MIDI file, and then convert that to an MP3, which I would use for a backing track. And it was a really kind of early way of kind of trying to do what I then ended up doing a lot more kind of anyway. But I would say that, it just took me so long to do it because it was just taking hours doing note by note. So I think that, but I liked having that time to do it, I guess, at the time. So yeah, and then I kind of started using stuff on my laptop a bit more, like Logic Pro and that kind of
mhm.
stuff, when I was making a lot of kind of demos and stuff like that.
Yeah, anymore, people forget that it takes a lot of technological know-how to be a musician, whether it's producing or whether it's promoting yourself and using social media. I mean, anymore, that's pretty much what we're doing. Did anybody, when it came to that technical sort of thing, the production sort of thing, did anybody teach you that, or was that very learn as you go? Because it sounded like it was a little learn as you go.
It was, yeah, completely learn as you go. I think that I always just really loved to do it, and what I was finding is that each record kind of just needed something different, and I was just yeah, experimenting a bunch with production. I think things like putting an effect on a piano, like I used to like to kind of reverse a piano sound, or uh, put a pedal on a kind of microphone to a piano, and then say if it was like yeah, a bass, actually kind of chopping up the samples for the bass a bit to give it a slightly more, a different sound. And yeah, I mean, production was definitely a big part of kind of what I like to do when I was starting to make music when I was earlier on as a teenager. Just go back to Prince, yeah, I think he's an absolutely amazing artist, and I love how he kind of experiments with music, and
Mhm.
that's something that I really want to do myself, and I hope that I'm kind of doing it to the best of my potential. It's yeah, I've got a kind of a first style that I did on my last record, which was last year, and in a way, just wanted to switch up the style slightly for this year. And so just recently, I've released my first single for the next record called Golden Karma,
Mhm.
and it's yeah, just a slightly different direction. So that's something I'm quite excited about.
Yeah, in what ways is it different for anybody that hasn't heard it yet?
So I would say that I would it's a bit of a departure from my first record because my first record was a little bit moodier.
Mm,
I was trying to, in a way, kind of paint a bit of a picture around kind of just like my early life in London and the kind of experiences growing up. And yeah, I think that kind of storytelling element was something that really interested me about making music. And so with this record, I wanted to do something that's just a little bit more in the moment, something also that's a little bit in the kind of world of the music that I'm listening to a bit more now, which is possibly slightly more contemporary bands like Yard Act, or say Sports Team. There's a kind of, this kind of wave of rock music in the UK at the moment. And but I suppose at the end of it, I'm still a fan of the things that I'm a fan of, possibly like Ian Jury and the Blockheads, like stuff that's quite a London sound. And yeah, so I think I'm trying to put myself in a slightly kind of yeah, more uncomfortable place with my music so that I don't just kind of do the same thing every time. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to writing, I tell people that I don't really like to sit down on an instrument to write a song. So because I find that, you know, if I've got a bit of muscle memory, that's kind of what I'll end up doing again. Whereas if I'm just walking to the shop, randomly have an idea come into my head, then by the time that I sit on that instrument, it's going to be something kind of yeah, something that I've not you know, thought of before.
Yeah. Do most of your ideas just come from walking about the city and observing things?
I would say, yeah, a large part of that, yeah. But I would say it's possibly even just random moments that I couldn't prepare myself for. So it's
Mm.
like, you know, I just you know, be in a random place in a random situation, have a bit of a random feeling, and I almost just kind of like it just the idea just comes like that. So
How do you like to make sense of those random moments lyrically? Just spit
uh,
it out authentically or try to
yeah,
maybe
that's
tell a
it. I
story behind it?
mean, I think that I used to be a lot more reserved about the way that I'd write, and then someone gave me some advice, which was just like, you know, you don't ever have to use some of this stuff, so you might as well just get it down, and then, you know, if it turns into something good, then fine. But then at least I can go back to it, and that. So I've released on Spotify now 9 songs because I did 8 last year, and this is my first
Yeah.
one of this year. But I've probably written over like 400 like demos, kind of thing.
Wow. How do you choose which is part of the larger project? That sounds impossible.
I suppose there are songs that I'm personally really excited about, and I'm really fortunate in that I started working on the records with Luke Potashnik, and so what usually happens is I'll say to him, I've got this kind of short list of songs that I'm kind of feeling, and just what do you reckon? And then he's kind of gives me his thoughts, and then we kind of just take it from there. And I really trust him as a musician. I mean, you know, he's working with me as a producer, but he also was a you know and is a fantastic musician.
Yes.
So you know,
Yeah.
it's
Just to put some perspective in for Americans listening, that Luke is connected with now Horan, Luke is connected with James Blunt, Luke is connected with Robbie Williams. I mean, he's a name. So how does this happen? How did you get that opportunity? Because that's awesome.
that. So I originally what it was is that I was in a kind of a situation where I put some demos out in possibly 2018 or something like that, and I met a few people in the industry that put me in these kind of writing and production sessions,
Oh, okay.
and through that I met Luke. And when COVID hit, I rang Luke on the phone and was like, I'd just really love to get some songs going, because I think, you know, I was almost preparing so carefully that I was losing sight of just like how to keep something quite fresh. And
Mm.
I think that, you know, I was really lucky in that Luke was excited about the what I was doing. And yeah, when I was working with some various people, he was a musician that really I felt just, you know, resonated with what I was doing, and it kind of just yeah, came quite naturally like that.
Okay, so among this group, I mean that's essentially networking 101 really for any industry. It's just the music industry version is what I'm hearing. And
Yeah.
so how were you able to you were able to decipher who was good when it came to collaboration and who maybe didn't fit what it was you were trying
Yes,
to do?
definitely.
What were some of those
And
tells that when
I
you
think
could tell?
well, I think that it's a you know, we I make the music, but then I guess there are certain ideas and like philosophies or like principles behind the music, and then it's just
Mm,
who shares some of those principles. And I think you know, Lou definitely I knew straight away, and you know, we like the same kind of music. You know, we're both quite big hip hop fans, and so it's been quite a large part of the sound. And yeah, I think you know, yeah, I suppose I've needed to give up kind of a bit of kind of, you know, my kind of control freakishness, you know,
oh,
because you know I'd just be doing it by myself, so I'd always like, you know, be trying to be very like um you know, gatekeeping what I'm doing. Whereas, what was a kind of a learning thing for me was to be like, well, actually, I don't always have, I know what I want to do, but then I'm not always gonna, I need to kind of be open to other people's ideas and things as well. So,
Yeah, that's such a challenge. I mean, when you're working with anybody, that's a challenge. Learning how to let go, learning how to maybe compromise a little bit and not be so intense when it comes to what you want to do, what your vision is. How did you learn to let some of that go?
well, I think just by seeing how amazing what we were doing was, and it
Yeah,
really just takes a
trusting.
life of its own. And it was a real kind of moment of growth for me, because I think that I was probably letting go of some anxiety around the record as well, just being a
Mm.
bit like, sometimes we're just going to make a studio mistake, and that's going to probably become one of our favorite things, maybe.
Has that happened where you've
Yes,
had a blooper and just left it in?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Billie Eilish is
It's,
notorious for that, and I love that about her too. Where she'll
yeah,
just
she's
leave
great.
it in.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Billie Eilish fan.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what she ends up doing next, because everything that she's done so far is still that's my favorite thing about her, is that she's still Billie. No matter what she transitions into, no matter where the fashion goes or the aesthetic goes, you still know it's a Billie song. You still
Yeah.
know it's her voice, and it's such a pleasure to hear every single time. We talked a little bit about Golden Karma. What's next? Leading into that's going to lead to something. Let's talk about what we're excited about.
Yeah, so it's quite a busy few months ahead. We've got a bunch of songs on the way. So just did Golden Karma. The next one is called Space Again, and it's quite a I would call it upbeat, and it's about a kind of finding a way to be like content with like almost being by ourselves and just having a bit of like space around us, and just
Mm,
like almost like coming to terms with you know things that we need to kind of feel better about ourselves and all this stuff. So yeah, I can't wait for you to hear it. We've done the music video for it already, and there is a DJ here in the UK called Fatboy Slim.
we know him.
His
Yes.
So his son is featuring in this next video. I had the pleasure of meeting him end of last year.
Fun.
Yeah, so his he's a DJ as well. His name's Woody Cook, and
Okay.
amazing DJ, and just a absolutely lovely guy. And so I had the pleasure of meeting him through my mate Chris, who has been working with me a bit on the kind of video end of things, and it's been very much a touch and go thing. We've got an idea for a video, we just want to get the video done and do it in the way that we want to do it. And
Mhm.
I think, just, really just having a really good time with it as well.
Yeah, you can tell. I mean, if somebody's having a good time in a video, that's the tricky thing about video, is everything. Like, I'm notorious for my face speaking before I do, and I'm like, that's that type of thing. You're like, oh, I gotta
Same.
look like I'm having fun, even if you're not completely into it. You gotta look like you're having fun. But that's not a challenge for you in the videos that I've seen. You have like this trippy vibe going on, and it
Well,
looks,
thank you. It's
yeah.
so with the Golden Karma video, we were fortunate enough to get this location as Stephen Wright at this House of Dreams museum. And what I figured is that there's this quite cool effect that you can do a kind of slow motion kind of lip sync to the video.
Yeah.
And the way that we did it is we sped up the song and filmed it at quite a high kind of frame per second, and then slowed it down and synced it up, and then kind of we got that slightly slow motion effect.
Okay. Was that planned, or was that just something
Yeah,
you
that was
realized as you were
planned.
doing it? Oh, okay.
No, it was, because and that's the thing of just kind of I guess I had an idea of kind of how I wanted to do it, and then it kind of I was quite lucky in that it worked out. But I think from last year, you know, making videos is a slightly new thing to me.
Mm.
So it's you know, been a bit of a learning process, but definitely a joy, and really grateful to everyone that's kind of helped me with that part of it. So yeah, we got space again, and the vibe of the video is like a kind of a Ghostbusters meets Wes Anderson style kind of like,
Yes.
yeah, slightly retro vibe kind of thing. And then following that is Always in My Head. And so that is a I don't know quite how to describe that one. It's about I think just trying to kind of you know, be in a kind of a new place in our life, whereas, you know, sometimes like certain situations can always like bring us, or like, you know, knock us back a peg, you know.
Mm. Mhm.
And you know, so yeah, that's the yeah, I'm excited for you to hear it.
I'm excited for all of it too, Theo. I can't wait. The title was interesting to me too. Always in my head. I'm like, well, that's me. That's
uh,
relatable. Anytime, I think any creative person knows what that feels like when you have all of these ideas and you're over analyzing them and you're trying to figure out how you want to project them to the world. Are have you now maybe learned to be a little bit less in your head and trust others and experiment a
I'm
little bit? It
trying.
sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm taking it day by day, and but yeah, I think but you know, and that's one of the kind of joys about doing what I'm doing is I've always felt that there's a slightly therapeutic aspect to it, and I do feel quite content uh through expressing myself in that way through music. So you know, and I yeah, uh, you know, I'm grateful for that. You know, I think that there's a kind of you know, certain power that music has in that way.
It totally does. I can't wait to see what's next, Theo. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and getting us excited. Thank you for your
But
time.
thanks so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure, and yeah, I hope that we get to speak soon again.